Hello, welcome. I'm Catherine Veneman, Curator of Education at the Blaffer Art Museum. Thank you for joining us virtually for Summer Arts 2021. We are pleased to present the second in a series of 4 family-friendly art-making demonstrations, which are partly inspired by the Blaffer's exhibitions. All of the lesson plans are available on our website. And all of them are presented by artist, educator, and Blaffer Art Museum docent Rona Lesser. Today, we're going to show you the second lesson, Create an Album Cover, Graphic Design, Music, and Change, which is inspired by the Blaffer exhibition, Jamal Cyrus, The End of My Beginning. So thank you very much and enjoy.
So today we're going to do a design. We're going to design our own record cover. And this can be inspired by any kind of music you like. And it can have a message, or it can just be something fun, a kind of music you like. Maybe you like hip hop, maybe you like jazz, maybe you like classical music, whatever you like. Graphic design is a field of art that art students often choose to go into because it is a way to make a career in art. And graphic designers design all kinds of things. Anytime you see posters, advertising, labels, record covers, all those are designed usually by book covers are usually designed by some type of graphic design artist. So we are going to play around with a couple of different techniques to design the album cover. I want to show you first a couple of album covers just to give you an idea that album covers can be very simple, but it says in the mood, and it's kind of just an atmosphere. And then sometimes they'll have a picture of the musician. This is an old Peter Yarrow album from Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it has a picture of him in the lettering. But one of the things about graphic design is trying to keep things simple. So my first sample actually got way too complicated. And so then I did another little sample, and then we're going to make another sample today that would be less complicated. This one I did is a combination of collage, cutting out letters from magazines, drawing, and using markers or crayons or whatever else I have available. So we're going to play around. I have one started that I will also show you, and we can go from that one into a little bit further. So the first thing is you might want to do is just jot down some ideas on a sheet of paper. So my idea would be a joyful sound. And that's a phrase I've heard before. And so then I would start thinking about what kind of images might make a joyful sound that I could use. I could use a music note or a series of music notes. I could use a face, really simple, and draw something, singing, a person singing. Or I could use colors or something else. So you could just start sketching out ideas. If I want it to be the same size as I'm going to work, my record cover, album cover, and even most CD covers, when we're still using CDs, are square or rectangular, but we're going to use a square. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to take a rectangular piece of paper and make it into a square. Your paper could be heavy so that it will hold something like a piece of cardstock, or you might decide you want to use a colored background, and then you can just use a sheet of colored paper. It's the same principle. What we're going to do to make this nice rectangle into a square is take the corner, one of the corners, holding it up like this, which is called vertical, and fold it, and I'll hold it up so you can see what I did, down, kind of like you would do a paper, a boat or something, or a paper hat design. just so it meets here. And then if we cut off the part where we folded it to the edge of the bottom edge of the triangle, where we folded it to, we will be left with pretty much a square. It's a trick I learned. That way you don't have to sit and measure it out with a ruler. And it works. Okay, so that would be our base for it. You could do the same thing with your sketch paper if you want, and then your size will match whatever you're doing. So after you do that, and after you get an idea, and let's go ahead and do this one, and I can continue, I can work on the other one too. I'm going to think about how I'm going to do that. So one fun way to do your letters, and the letters don't all have to look the same, would be to cut them out of textures, all kinds of textures. You can find textures in magazines. Most of these came from old National Geographics, but you can use other magazines. They're just a really good source. Maybe you have, this is the most colorful wrapping paper, but maybe you have some old wrapping paper scraps at home from the holidays. It's kind of fun if you can find any storage space to keep some of this stuff. Because I do art teaching a lot, I have all kinds of stuff at home to use, access. But so all kinds of things like that have different colors and textures. If you do not have anything like that, and maybe you're just working with white paper and markers, you can draw your own textures by making all kinds of patterns on a sheet of paper. We did that in some of the lessons last summer that are still online. We made textures and patterns. So actually we did some patterns last week in last week's lesson. So you can make all kinds of fun patterns and then use those, and we'll do some of the letters out of those too. And then the last way is if you can find some textures. This is a piece of corrugated board from boxes. We all been getting boxes since everybody orders stuff. This is a piece of old embroidery, plastic embroidery. You can use coins. You can use anything, a rough wall, and rub against it. And you can produce some rubbings. And for rubbings, you need a thinner paper if possible. And I know I have a sheet of thin paper here. It will work on the construction paper, on the colored construction paper also. But computer paper is great for that because it's nice and thin. And you just put the texture you want underneath, and then pick up a crayon and take off some of the paper. This is an oil pastel, but that's just because I don't have any crayons. And just rub, and you will get a really interesting texture. You can put another color on top of it if you want. And then you'll have all these kinds of things that you can use. This is a piece from a watercolor set. It makes a really neat circly thing. Okay, so now let's get started. So I'm going to use the theme, a joyful sound, and I'm just going to start cutting out. If you need to draw them first, you can draw them with something dark, like a dark marker, some letters. Oh, actually, I think I drew that one backwards, but no, it's fine. If you want, you can draw it on the back side of the paper, and then it'd be easier to cut out without the line. But the line's not a big thing if you want to leave it. You could also tear them out. So I have a J. And I want a variety, so I'm going to do a whole bunch of different kinds of letters and maybe different sizes. Whoops. If I'm doing an O, the best way to do it is to fold it in half and then cut out the middle. But I can always fix it. I could use colored paper too, if you have construction paper. And you might even want some white letters if you don't have a white background. So let me use one of the rubbing on construction paper so you can see what that would look like. I'm kind of freehand cutting, but you don't have to do it that way. It would be good practice, cutting practice for your kids to write the letters out in different sizes. If you happen to have letter stencils, you could stencil your letters and color inside them. But most of us don't have that at home. Even me, even though I do a lot of teaching, I do not have anything like that at home. Oops, I love this pattern. I mean a Y. I mean a U. Oops. The other thing you could do, though it takes a lot longer, is find the letters in the newspaper or magazines. It's a lot harder to do that than to just cut out some things. And I need an L. Okay, so you don't glue anything on it first, because one of the things about design is I might want to change where I put these letters. All right, so I'm making my letters pretty big, so that's going to cover a lot of this. My cover might end up being mostly letters. But if I wanted a picture here, in this case, since I said something about doing some musical notes, I could even just draw those and then use the letters on top of it. My design was not that complicated, so I'm just going to draw a couple of musical notes to indicate sound. And maybe there's a color to you that indicates joy. Like I like yellow a lot. I think yellow is a really happy color. Or let's see what other colors I have handy that I know work. When does the pink will work? Oh, that turns out to be green. So I made them join together like that. So I'm just going to leave those in the background for now. And I think I'm going to keep this fairly simple. And maybe or not draw a face on there. I don't know. You might actually find a picture somewhere of someone singing like this. I don't think I'm going to use that today, but you might find something like that you could put in. So when you get everything together that you think you want to use, we're going to go ahead and start gluing, even though I don't have the second word. Make sure you have all your words cut out, but I want to make sure we can get far enough along that you can see it almost finished. If I lost a letter, I'll cut another one out. Sometimes my desk gets a little cluttered here. So let's go ahead and just do this as if I had everything all cut out for the whole thing, and make some decisions about where I might want these letters. Watch your spelling when you're doing this. Sometimes I get so busy trying to do the letters that I forget to spell it right. Do I like that? I think I'm going to move it around to get some more. till I gets, since I wrote these notes in there and kind of getting in the way of my letters now. So I probably should have held off. You know what? How about like that? Because that looks joyful, because it looks like they're dancing. And then I could have just put sound underneath there. And that would work if I cut out the rest of that. So let's go ahead and just glue that down so you can see what it looks like. For glue, I took my glue and I put a teeny bit of water in it just to make it work a little bit better. And I put it on a plate because it's easier, a paper plate, because it's easier than those glue bottles. So I just squeeze some out. I'm using this kind of brush, which I bought like at a Walmart. They are just these plastic brushes with a little bit plasticky, inexpensive. And I'm just going to start lifting each one up and gluing it back down where I have it. That's why you want to wait till you're sure you know which one, where you want it. That one actually had nice colors on the other side. So I've used a variety of the two different kinds of things here. I've used rubbings. It's more fun than just writing your letters in. To make some textures of some kind to do your letters. I could have done the notes that way too. Let's see. Let me see what that looks like. I can still move that L around a little bit. It's not stuck down real well. Okay, so here are the letters looking like they're dancing around with a little bit of picture. It still looks kind of blank, but we still have the rest of the letters to put in down here. And then I think even, and they'll be smaller. I'll have to cut those out a lot smaller to make them work. But I'll cut a couple of them just so we can kind of see. You know, S's I have to write. I don't think I can do an S without drawing it first. It's a little harder. You might want a black marker to draw your letter with. Okay, so I've got an S cut out. And as I was saying, it's a little hard sometimes for the kids to cut. I guess another alternative would be for you to draw the letters and just have them put color them in, or. So we would go across here with the word sound. I think you can see the whole thing now. And because my edges are kind of bare, since I used a white background instead of a pretty color, I am going to take some colors. Most people have some crayons or markers at home. These happen to be oil pastels just because that's what I've got. And I'm going to draw a funny border that looks happy. Because it just looks a little bare to me, even after I would get the whole lot of word in there. I don't want it to look cluttered. The idea is not to make it cluttered, but just a little bit brighter looking. So I'm putting a little border around it. You can have a lot of fun with all kinds of ideas and all kinds of different materials that you could just gather and come up with your favorite kind of music and what you want to say about it. So I hope you will try this lesson out and come visit the Blaffer and see the exhibit. Thank you very much and see you next week.